Quick test of the chapel sound system. Hopefully you can hear me in the hallway. Just testing to see if it comes through.
please be seated. What they'll feel is a very particular kind of ache, one that will spasm at random intervals, in the shower, on a bad date, in the middle of a college seminar. And when it does, they'll know. This is the longing you feel for a place that's become a part of you. This is the yearning you carry when you never really leave. All Girls by Emily Layden.
Now, double vaccinated, double boosted, so that's how we're doing it. Well, good morning. It's the last time you get to do that. Now, look, if you're going to cry, we've got like 19 minutes left, so hang in there, hang in there. So, I was thinking this morning what a milestone this is. This is always a big deal, graduation and so forth, but we don't really contemplate it until we get in a space like this. And I think this year, extremely unique because this is the first time we've really been in here since, for some of you, your freshman year, sophomore year. And the other thing I thought about this morning, which is pretty timely, for me anyway, is that 60 years ago to today, my mother was sitting right where you were sitting and graduated in the class of 1962. Her sister had just graduated in the class of 1960, and their mother and aunt had graduated in the 30s. So I'm actually the fifth in the line at the school here. So it's pretty impressive to think that you're sitting here contemplating what's coming, and I can look back at, say, my mother's life, and she was doing the same thing you were doing now and thinking forward to all the things that are in store. So a little bit of history there. The other thing I thought about was how it's great on a day like graduation where everybody's gathering and it's festive and everything else, but it's great to have this moment where it's just us, and it's nice to sort of pause and take stock, because this is probably the last time this group will ever be together. Whether or not we think about it in that sense, all of us in the same space is pretty unlikely again. And you're going to come back, and I know this has been a challenging year, and for all of us, and I think that that makes it tough to look forward down the line, but you'll be back, and you'll group with these people again. But the fact that we're all here together now is unique in this space and at this moment. So savor that if you can. I've got, of course, like any graduation speech, I have a series of wonderful quotes that you'll take with you for the next 7 minutes, probably. But one of my favorite ones that deals with that is from the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, and it's been in my room for years, and it says, "You can never step foot in the same river twice." And you think about that image. A river is constantly flowing, it's constantly changing. You guys are at this moment right now, and if you come back for a reunion or something else, it'll never quite be the same. The school will be different, you'll be different, the world around you will be different. That river has stayed, but it is different. And so I think, again, this is a very unique moment that you will look back on specifically to now with these people. Okay, so I'm getting through the sentimental stuff up front here, so we can move on. But speaking of moving on, I think it's also timely for us that you guys came in your freshman year. Robin and I came in your freshman year. We're all sort of graduating on together. Robin's up there, Kendra's up there, I'm here. We are all moving on after 4 years and moving on to the next chapter of life. So we're sort of doing that together, and I think it's great. This is the last year I'll be teaching. As you know, I'll be moving into some administrative jobs. This is the last group that I've had in the class, and I really could not think of a better group to leave on a high note. So thank you to all of you. And then, of course, I promised I would do this, and I think it's appropriate, but one of the things I'll miss in a big way is my little war room committee that would stop by quite often. So Emma and Sophia and Tate and Selena, Fatima, and then on a separate note, usually Maura, Maury, and Mara and Jill, and of course our first head of school, Lydia, would keep me posted on things going on quite often. So there's also this issue, in addition to that crew, of Aubrey, Kat, and Cindy, but I'm going to let that one just sort of sit, because they were usually keeping me posted on different things. So I'm going to leave that one alone, since this is being recorded. So I'll leave the stop sign out for now. Okay, so there's two themes that I wanted to just cover with you real quickly that are kind of to me, I don't love classic graduation speeches, but there's a couple things I wanted to go through with you. And I think the first one has to do with the future and our control. And we like to think that we have a lot of control over what's happening and what's coming up in the future and what we're going to do. And I think if the last 2 years has taught us anything in a pandemic, it's that we can try very hard to make things happen, to guarantee an outcome, and we also find that that really just doesn't work, right? And so we've addressed the pandemic with social distancing and masks and vaccines and all these things, and the plans still can fall apart, right? Just look at the graduating class of 2020 that was here the other day. They were getting ready to do just what you were doing, and it took them 2 years. They never envisioned not having a graduation. And fortunately, they were able to come back and do that. But best laid plans don't always work out. So the idea of doing something and getting no result, what you do doesn't matter, is the term is called futility. And there's a story that I want to read you just a quick piece of that's going to sound familiar to you. That's from a book called Futility. And see if this sounds somewhat familiar. It says, this is chapter 1 of Futility. She was the largest craft afloat and the greatest of the works of men. In her construction and maintenance were involved every science, profession, and trade known to civilization. From her lofty bridge ran hidden telegraph lines, the highest technology of its day. From the bridge and engine room, a dozen places under deck, the 92 doors of 19 watertight compartments could be closed in half a minute by turning a lever. These doors would also close automatically in the presence of water. With 9 compartments flooded, the ship would still float, and no known accident of the sea could possibly fill this many, so the steamship was considered practically unsinkable. Indestructible, it carried as few lifeboats as would satisfy the laws. These 24 in number were securely covered, and if launched, could cover 500 people. This was a mere fraction of its total tonnage. She carried no useless life rafts, but because the law required it, a few cork vests. So clearly, we're talking about what? I've shared this with some of you, so you know where this is going. But the strange thing about that, of course, is that if you look in the preface to this book, it was written in 1898, which is 15 years before the Titanic was even built or even imagined. And strangely, as if no one bothered to read this, the actual subtitle of this is The Wreck of the Titan. So they named this boat the Titan. And if you read on, the Titan sails on its maiden voyage, hits an iceberg, and sinks. 15 years later, of course, we have the Titanic, and almost identically the same thing happens. Too bad the builders didn't read the Titan, right? But I think the theme here that I'm getting at is you don't want to confuse control over influence. We have very little control over a lot of things. The builders of the Titanic tried to control their environment and failed spectacularly. But we can influence a lot. So when you go out from here, trying to control things doesn't always work out too well. But trying to influence things, that's part of your job, right? So the idea is often phrased from something JFK came up with, which I don't know exactly how accurate these characters are, but he said that the term crisis in the Chinese characters are made up of 2. One is danger, and the one is potential. And so out of danger, out of crisis, comes the potential for change. So if you think about the idea of this book, Futility, and that terminology, everything they did didn't work out, right? But think what happened because of the Titanic. That story does matter, right? The Coast Guard was created to be able to save lives at sea. They mandated lifeboats for everyone on board. They changed the ship design, better training. All that stuff happened because of that one story. And so I think, for us, trying to control events may not work out, but, never think that what you do doesn't matter. It may not matter right this second. You may not see the result right now, but you are influencing, you are changing events. That crisis can lead to something else. And the fact that you're doing something, right, is huge. There's another JFK line that he uses a lot that comes from the poet Dante Alighieri. And he says that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who remain neutral, right? That doing something is better than not trying at all. And he saw that as worse. So I think in that first theme that while we try and think about we're going to control our college, we're going to control our careers, we're going to control all this kind of stuff, our income, that may not pan out, but what we're doing does have an impact. We're influencing people, we're influencing events that you may not always see off the bat. Okay, the second theme then has to do with authentic. And I always thought that, living authentically always sounds kind of, it's a catchphrase, whatever, but I think, right now, one of the things I thought about with your generation, it shows you how old I am, is simply that, did you snicker? Okay. Your generation is probably confronted with the most pressure from social media, from TV, from those around you, to act and be like everyone else. There's so much out there that is influencing you to be like the rest, to be like the crowd, right? And so it's pretty gutsy to step back from that. It's pretty gutsy to say, I really don't, that doesn't fit me. I'm not going to conform to what everyone else is doing. But that leaves you out there, right? I mean, that leaves it's very uncomfortable. Interestingly, there's a quote in the Bible from 2 Timothy that says, in the last days, people shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, unthankful. Think about half of social media today. What are we putting out there? Things about ourselves. How do I look? I look great. I got to post a picture of this, right? We're so concerned with ourselves that we lose touch with how we can help others. And that's a huge deficit today. You guys are probably aware of this, but in some states, they've had to enact Good Samaritan laws. You guys know what those are? Right? So if you see someone in trouble, someone's dying, you go to help them. You're not trained first aid, whatever it is, but you try, right? And it doesn't work out. Families were suing the person who tried to help because it didn't work out. And so people would see someone in trouble and they would literally step back and go, I don't want to get into a lawsuit for this. And so the Good Samaritan law says, hey, go ahead and try. We'd rather you do something than nothing, right? And so we have to really start to step back from that whole conundrum of it's all about us and start looking around at the people sitting next to you and going, hey, what can I do for these people? And so, as you go forward from something like those Good Samaritan laws, the idea also is that the more you step up and help others, the more those people around you are more likely to do so as well. And one of my other favorite little lines says, a rising tide lifts all boats. It's a great little visual. If you think, like up in Maine, there are very huge tide differences. Boats will be sitting in the muck for part of the day, and 12 hours later, they're literally all floating. By you doing something, it helps all those around you rise up, right? Okay, now, this last little section here won't surprise you, but finding your own rhythm within that, finding how to be your authentic self, right, has a lot to do with being willing to step out of that main line that everyone is doing, being able to step out of the conformity, right? Now, you guys have done so much marching practice. And yet, Gigi, honestly, wow. I hate to say that's why, but okay, all right. Anyway, that was a nice call out, huh? So, with your marching practice, so give me this. Okay, so there's us, right? We're all in step. This feels pretty good. What if you want to be a little different? What if you want to step out, right? You followed this, right? So my point is that, yeah, it's pretty comfortable. We all like to be in step with everyone else, but what if we want to be a little different? That's uncomfortable, right? That is something that not everybody loves doing because it puts you out there. What if they don't like me? What if I don't fit in? It's pretty vulnerable, right? But you stepping out and being your own self fosters a massive self-confidence. You feel comfortable with who you are. I don't really care what other people think. That's a big step. That's a big journey. I'm not there. It's hard to say no to people to do things. Robin knows, one of our best friends up in Michigan was absolutely confounded because he would stop by and call every 5 minutes, and he was one of those drop-in kind of guys. And he'd call and say, hey, you guys want to go out to dinner? And we'd be like, yeah, of course, yeah, that'd be great, whatever. Meanwhile, we're going, no, I just want to stay home, right? But it's hard to say, no, I don't. And so over the years, I got much better. He'd call and goes, hey, you guys want to go to dinner? No, I don't. And you're not worried about, is the other person going, was it just me? And you're going, yeah, it's you. I don't want to hang out with you tonight. That's the way it is. That takes a while to get comfortable with that. And to be able to say, I don't care. This is me, and I don't need to be like this. And I think, finding your own rhythm and sticking to it leads to a lot of benefits down the line, right? Okay. So, one of the things that we end up with, just to wrap this up so we can get on to the main course here today. Part one, what you do matters. There is a point to it. It may not seem like it now, but you're influencing people. Don't confuse control over influence. Longfellow, which is I don't have a lot of, look at me, do I have a lot of favorite poets? No, but Longfellow says, lives of great men and women all remind us. We can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. You can have an impact. You can leave something behind. Rosa Parks didn't change the world in her mind. She didn't set out that morning and go, today, changing everything. She got up, she was tired, and she sat down on the bus, and it changed a lot from that one act, right? So remember that what you do does matter. Second thing, find your rhythm, right? Step out a little bit. Do something different. Be yourself, and don't worry about what happens after that. Surround yourself with people like this, people who are going to support you when you do step out a little bit, right? Another guy, transcendentalist. Ooh, Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you imagined. Now, transcendentalists didn't do that stuff for money or fame. Transcendentalists are all about authentically living. What's my true self? Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you imagined, right? So, I wish you all the best. I hope you go confidently as you take your next step today in the direction of your dreams. Thank you so much for having me here this morning with you and sharing this time. And I hope to see you in about an hour as your graduates. Take care.
Please stand. Today, we gather in gratitude for all aspects of sacred events, to air, the warmth of fire, bodies of water, plants, the land, the universe, and all animals and humankind. We gather to honor our parents and grandparents, family members, and friends that have traveled with us on our path to success. May we always cherish our ancestors as we prepare for the days ahead. May we remember that peacefulness exists in the ordinary elements of our lives.
May each of us remember to share our stories with one another, because it is only through stories that we live full lives. May the words spoken before us be means of comfort, joyfulness, and other inspiration. May our homes, schools, and communities be filled with positivity that reflect our spirit. May we realize that our actions affect all people and the earth. May we always remember that we were created as people who believe in one another. We are grateful, peaceful creatures for all things seen and unseen.